everybody, how's it hanging? How's it happening? Because you guys, this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. It is the 16th of August, and in about a month and a half from now, the band that we are going to be talking to today is going on tour with Between the Buried and Me and Trivium. So you know that this band absolutely rocks. And you're going to want to get to know them, especially because, well, this conversation, oh boy, this one was a lot of fun, and this one really got me energized. So before we jump in, I want to thank our sponsors. So first, even though we're coming to the end of summer, guys, you know, lawns still need to be cut, you know, get that lawnmower going, because the last thing you want is an unkempt lawn. And, you know, what guys, let's be honest with you, what woman's going to be like, oh my God, look at that lawn, it's all over the place. Wait, Kevin, what lawn are you talking about, man? Wait, did I ask myself that question in the third person? Whatever. Our sponsor today is Manscaped, and because, well, they're the best in care down there. So whether, you know, you're hairy, not so hairy, but the last thing you want to do is, you know, have that place all wild and whatnot, making it look like, you know, you're George of the Jungle down there. George of the Jungle, hairy as can be. Pfft, afro under that tree. What the hell am I talking about? But if you want to make sure that your boys down there are the best kept, best looking, and that, you know, get that nice clean shave down there, then, you know, rev up that lawnmower. That Lawnmower 4.0 it is. Oh yeah, this is the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped. This is the best way to take care of your balls down there, your boys down there, to make sure you get the smoothest ride overall. Of course, why does this provide the smoothest ride overall? Three major reasons. One, it's waterproof. So say you accidentally drop it in water, oh, it ain't getting ruined. Number two, you want to see what you're doing down there? Watch what happens when I turn this on. Is that a light? Yeah, 4K LED light, so you can see what you're doing down there, and just like, ooh, yeah. Also, it is built with skin-safe technology. You see it? This is the blade. Of course, why does it not look like it's metallic? That's because it is ceramic. It helps prevent those nick cuts where it's just like, I mean, who wants to get cut down there? It's a horrible experience. So, want to make sure that you don't get cut down there? Boom. Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped. If you want to get yours, go to manscaped.com. You want to get it a little bit cheaper than full price? Use the code CPP at checkout. You get 20% off and free shipping. So thank you, Manscaped. We are also sponsoring the When We Were Hungry Music Festival happening out in Las Vegas, October 20th and 21st of 2022. Pancakes in the Pit, Memes in the Dreams. If you miss Warped Tour, this is going to be the festival you want to be at, because, my God, that lineup is Warped Tour-esque. Take a look at the lineup. We've got bands that have been on the podcast on the lineup, like, of course, Modern Day Escape. I mean, Will's the one that created the festival. We've got Palisades. We've got Along Came a Spider. We've got Varsity. We have Saving Vice, Our Friends and Outlier. And I can say this now, Secondhand Serenade, because John was recently on the podcast. John and Secondhand Serenade are headlining Friday night. Who's headlining Thursday? Oh, I don't know, a little band called Black Flag. Oh, yeah. This is going to be, like, if you miss Warped Tour, this is going to be it. Come out to Vegas to help us celebrate the best emo weekend of all time. When We Were Hungry Music Festival, October 20th and 21st, 2022, Las Vegas, Nevada. Get your tickets now at whenwewerehungryfestival.com. Links in the description of the podcast for you on that. Memes in the Dreams, Pancakes in the Pit. Come to the When We Were Hungry Festival and throw down with me, because I'll be in the pit. Chord Progression Podcast t-shirt, Milwaukee Brewers hat. You won't want to miss me. On top of that, it's going to be fun. Now in our feature presentation, so the band that is opening up for Trivium in Between the Buried and Me on that tour in October is a band called Khemmis. They recently were on tour earlier this year with Mastodon and Opeth, and I mean, ooh, that's quite the two tours that you're going to want to hear. So we have Phil on the podcast today. So we talk a little bit about both tours, about the positivity that metal brings, why people listen to it. We also get into a discussion on why they're going to fit easily on that Dream Between the Buried and Me tour. And as the podcast rolls on, we get into my favorite things. One, haunted venues, the Rave and the Masonic Temple in Detroit. And then we start talking about corporate venues, independent venues, supporting your local scene. and everything in between. You're not going to want to miss on that, because once Phil starts talking about those venues that take merch cuts, this podcast literally goes from all the way up here, like over where the camera's allowing me, to through my freaking roof, through the ceiling. You're not going to want to miss on. This is one of my favorite conversations of all time. So please welcome Phil from the band Khemmis to the podcast. Are you ready? You better be. Let's go! Yeah! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, let me ask you a question. Do you like metal? Like, really? Do you like metal? Because I got a band here that you're really going to want to get into, because if you like metal, you're going to like these guys. Earlier this year, they were on tour with Masonic and Opeth, and I mean, if they're going to be on tour with those guys, you pretty much know, like, okay, this is someone you're going to want to get into. And later on this year, like in October and November, they're going to be on tour with Trivium and Between the Buried and Me. So can you guarantee that I'm going to probably go and see them? Abso-freaking-lutely. I mean, who wouldn't want to go see these guys? So please welcome Phil from the band Khemmis to the podcast. So Phil, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
What's up, Kevin? Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you on, man. I mean, how is everything going in your world as of late, as you know, you guys are getting prepared to go out on your second big tour of 2022? Like, how's everything been going so far, man?
It's great. It feels like we've taken off like a rocket in the last year. I mean, COVID's done a lot of different things for different people, but we were able to put out an album that we were really happy with, and it seems like it's been doing stuff for us. And, you know, the Mastodon Trivium was a great opportunity with lots of cool shows. And, you know, it's just cool to get to know those guys and be able to, you know, like I have, you know, like Bill's number in my phone or whatever, you know, it's like, it feels like we're living like an elevated version of our lives right now. And, it's cool to continue that trend with this upcoming tour with Trivium. And we've met those guys before, and they're all awesome dudes. Paulo's come out to a bunch of our shows in Chicago, and we hung out with him. We've hung out with them and drank tequila in Mexico City before. So, you know, like, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good time, not just for the music, you know, just for the people too.
Oh, absolutely. And just kind of like you said, living an elevated version of like your life right now. Just kind of take a look at it, you know, touring with Mastodon and Opeth. I mean, just those names, just having yourself on a tour with Mastodon, that just brings a lot more people, man, a lot more people to go to those shows, because and they get to see you perform as well. And a lot of people, including myself, it's like how we find out about a lot of the bands we like and a lot of the bands that we really get to enjoy is we go to these shows, and all of a sudden we see the name of the band we really want to see on there, whether it's a Mastodon, whether it's a Trivium, whether it's a band like Motionless in White or Beartooth or A Day to Remember. But then we look later on in the bill, and it's like, okay, there are bands that are earlier on the bill that, you know, you might not know, but if they're going to be on a bill that a band you really want to see is on, you're going to go to that show, go see all of them, because you never know when, you know, you might see something where all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, I'm not sure what this is, but this is interesting. At the end of the set, you're just like, whoa, I need to hear more of this.
Yeah, we've all had that experience, you know, like going to a show and just being completely blown away by some band you never even heard of that was opening. And, you know, we hope to be that band that delivers that for people on this tour and on this last tour, you know, come to a crowd that, you know, maybe 100 people know who we are, and then hopefully win everybody over by the end. It's kind of the name of the game, and it's a fun challenge to take up. You know, at the end of the day, I think we're basically see ourselves as a rock and roll band. We love heavy metal, and we love having a good time. And I hope that comes across when we are playing for people. And that's exactly what an opening band should be doing, is like getting people hyped up for the rest of the night. And I know that we can do that. And so, you know, it's a fun challenge for us, but it's one that, you know, I look forward to rising to.
And that's a perfect way to look at it too. There's another band I was talking to, this was probably about 2 months ago, and their whole entire idea around a live show was, especially as an opening band, it's like, you've got 25 minutes for a crowd that might not have any idea who you are. It's like, you have to have 25 minutes to win over that crowd. And especially with this, you know, the bands that you're playing with, you guys love heavy metal, these fans love heavy metal. Okay, there's definitely a connection that you can make. But if you're going to just want to make the best show and have the most fun with it and enjoy it, that energy that you bring on stage is going to end up reverberating out to the fans, and the fans are going to pick up on that. And by the time that 25 minutes is over, 30 minutes is over, you have won that crowd over. And even though there's more bands coming up next and they're looking at like, okay, Khemmis played, holy shit, this was awesome. I am so ready to go absolutely ape crazy for the rest of the bill. And the energy is just up at that point. The enthusiasm is up. The positivity of the crowd is up. Everyone is just feeding off of that. And I mean, you're the start of sometimes what might be the best show people see all year or in their entire lives at that point.
Yeah, I don't want to take that for granted either. I mean, like, it's supposed to be fun for us, but I also look at it as something that, these people could spend their money to go do any number of other things. And like, it's our responsibility to take it seriously enough to like deliver on, people's investment. And it's important to respect people's, investment in that way. And so I always want to try and give people the best show that I possibly can, even if I'm not feeling well, even if like morale is down for whatever reason, even if there's technical problems, even if, whatever else is going on in your life that can sort of impact, how you're feeling at some given moment. I think that I always look forward to playing a show as an excuse to turn that off and try and just like, even if I have to pretend that I'm like being this better version of myself for 30 minutes, like it still is helpful to do that, and so I always look forward to that opportunity to just, zone in on this thing and just give it everything we've got and just try and have fun and make people have fun, and sometimes it kind of pisses me off if I'm seeing that people are like just on their phones the whole time. So like, I don't know, I'll try and like really dig in and like focus on those people and try and get them into it. And that's what I mean about it being a challenge is like, sometimes there's a little bit more work to do. And it can also be the fun part because like that can draw a certain kind of energy out of you too, when you're like, no, I'm going to make sure this guy has a good time, even though he doesn't give a shit right now. If that means I have to poke him in the face with the end of my guitar, like I'm going to do it, I'm going to find that guy. And so, the goal at the end of the night is for everybody to have a good time. And we want to be a part of that.
Oh, I 100% agree with you on all of that. Especially, I mean, going as many shows as I do myself, I see those people in the crowds all the time where it's just disinterested, disheartened, just seem like, they're there for a reason, but they're just so focused in on seeing whatever band they want to see. It's like they're shutting everybody else out. But if there's a way that you can connect with them on any sort of way, whether it's like literally calling them out, literally just, having some fun, that literally making sure you can try and find a way to bring their attention to you and just kind of blow their mind with something, or like to take the guitar and just like give a little tap on the head, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? And then just the rest of the crowd will feed off that too, because now you're literally doing like, like the absolute core of crowd entertainer or musician, whatever you might want to call it, connection, where it's like you're literally going into the crowd and like getting that point across, where it's like, hey, watch this, and just go nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just a fun time too. And again, the one thing I did like what you said about in top of that as well was taking a look at those days where you are going to have those days where, morale is down. Maybe things aren't going right, or like on stage, something's going wrong, something is not connecting right. Or, maybe on the personal side of things, like you're just down for whatever reason it might be. And of course, like us in the crowd, we're not going to know that that's the case. So we're not going to be able to pick up on that. And it is tough on those days to find, any kind of energy or that kind of just willpower just to push through and put on the best show possible when you're having some of those issues. But it is important to try and do the best that you can during that time, because that's what people are going to remember. I mean, people are going to remember those times where I do remember certain bands that I've seen and certain artists I've seen where they've gone up on stage, something went wrong, and they just let it impact the show so negatively that I really didn't want to listen to that artist or really connect with that artist anymore. But on the flip side, I've seen shows where, things have gone terribly wrong and the band just found a way just to make it even better, like just roll with it. And those are the shows that stick out in my head. And those are the shows where, people connect with the band a lot more when things go wrong and the band says, fuck it, we're still going to figure this out. And they just keep going, whether it's, say the backlighting goes out, or say, one of the microphones isn't working, because I've seen this before where the lead mic had kept cutting in and out. So the lead singer literally just like flipped it behind him, grabbed his guitarist mic and just kept going, and that mic worked perfectly. It's like, I remember that still. And that's something that just stands out in the minds of fans as you're going to give the best show possible to us. And we're going to remember that. We're going to have such a positive relationship now in our minds between what we think is good music and what we perceive as music and what we perceive as such a positive relationship with your music as well. I mean, that's going to be a bond that's very hard to break.
I think, I mean, like the records exist to give you the perfect version of the song. And then the live show exists to create the human connection between the music and an audience, right? And I think anything that can emphasize that and communicate better, like this is all just, we're all just doing our best and having a good time. I think it always comes across well to people, and it puts me off when I see a show and it's just like robotic, but it sounds perfect. And I would way rather see a band that's like maybe kind of bombing in some aspects, but is clearly like making the best of it. And like you said, like you remember those moments when things don't go perfect, and you don't remember a lot of specific things from shows where everything is just absolutely perfect all the way through. There's a life in those imperfections. And those are the things that I kind of look forward to with live music, is like getting the excuse to sort of peek behind the curtain a little bit and get the reality of what this band is about or what that person's about, or, whatever. And I think a good thing about this upcoming tour is that I think that all of these bands are pretty unpretentious in that, like, the audience that I expect will come to these shows just wants to have a good time and see some music. And that's not always true of every tour package and of every band, and I can appreciate that a lot, because like I said, like you can go see some band that's technically perfect, but it's just like decidedly not fun. And it can just encourage a really different audience to be there. And, I don't think that maybe we're as well suited to that kind of audience. Like I said, I think we're a rock band, and, it's going to be more of that kind of thing than anything else. So, I'm looking forward to it because the package is pretty unique, and like, we haven't necessarily played for who I'm expecting will probably be a slightly younger audience than what we usually draw at our own shows. And that they have a lot more energy, and like, they're just going to be excited to see this show. And so it's a really cool opportunity for us to get to tap into that a little bit.
Oh yeah, because even when I was, listening to your music and really diving deep into it, when I was thinking about like that Masson Opeth tour, just kind of thinking about the crowds that would be going to a show like that, not only just the size, but also the age, energy, demographics, listening to music, I'm like, that would perfectly fit for you guys in terms of probably like what you expect when it comes to Trivium and Between the Buried and Me. Now, that's going to be something a little bit on the younger side compared to maybe what you're used to. Maybe a little more energy, especially based off of, because I'm a lot bigger on Trivium myself than Between the Buried. I still listen to Between the Buried a little bit, but I'm a little bit bigger on Trivium. And like, I really want to go see him. I haven't seen him yet before. So I'm like, I'm really looking forward to this, to see that and get that energy and go nuts. And if you're going to bring that kind of a group together, and then you guys go on and open up the show and you're able to bring energy and, capitalize on that and just see how the crowd's going to react, all of a sudden now you're going to have that crowd create that kind of reaction with that energy that you're looking for, that'll make you be like, okay, maybe this isn't what we're normally used to, but how do we deliver on this? Because this isn't like on the album. This isn't, the absolute perfect version. Things are going to happen, and you also are going to work with a live crowd as well, a live audience, and want to create the best experience for them possible, so that when you go off stage, the relationship in people's minds between your band and themselves is always going to be positive because of the energy that was brought, because of the emotions that were felt during that show, and everything in between.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the reality is that like the music that we write, especially like lyrically and thematically, is pretty heavy and can be pretty sad and can be kind of a downer. But the energy behind it is to kind of create like, this transgression from the problems that we're facing, and to sort of like rise above it, and to, find those excuses to find joy and happiness in what can sometimes be a hard existence that we all face. And I think that our live show leans a lot more into sort of the exuberance of that than it does in like, I think if you think about like a typical doom band playing a live show, There's not going to be a lot of the crowd engagement. It's going to be relatively low energy from a performance standpoint. And I think we put on a show that ends up looking a lot more like what Trivium does than like what, you might expect from just hearing the album. So I think that we stand a good chance of being able to bridge that divide and maybe introduce some people to like a new style of music that they're not familiar with. And, maybe it's a message that will connect with people once they've had time to digest it later on too, because it's something that I think it's applicable to people of all ages, but especially people who are like in their 20s and sort of figuring out what life is all about. It can be pretty hard to exist in this world sometimes. And so, my hope is not just that people have a good time, but that at the end of the day, if they like what they hear, that they might even get something out of the music that we make that kind of goes beyond just like, the fun aspect of seeing the show live. And that could be a hard sell, I think, to younger people sometimes as like the main selling point. But it's something that I think also can happen, with the right kind of exposure and with the right kind of intention behind a performance. And that's exactly why, what you're saying is true, that like, if you just create the right energy for this show, people will remember it and they'll want to check it out.
Absolutely. And just thinking about it from my perspective, because I kind of fit into that demographic, and that's why I'm 27 right now. And just thinking about what I like to do when I go to shows, like I love going to punk rock shows and metalcore shows. That's my favorite thing because I love the energy that's going around there. It makes me feel the happy, especially going nuts. So seeing metalcore shows with the gigantic energy, like going to see Ice Nine Kills, Most White, We Came as Romans, Beartooth, A Day to Remember, going nuts for those. Punk rock, ever seeing Rise Against and Anti-Flag, like there is just something that clicks in my brain. I'm just like, this is awesome, let's go. And so when I was first starting listening to your music, it was like, think about that doom style of metal. I'm like, this never really was for me just because of the way, the energy. It just wasn't fully there for me. But when I was listening to the music of Khemmis, I was listening to your guys' music, there was something about it that connected with me a little bit differently than any other band that I've heard of in that style. And it was based off of how the drive of each song was, where it had this flow to it where you could feel the drive of the energy was still there. And the drive felt rather similar to a drive that Trivium would have. But Trivium, I've heard Trivium before, and they're on typically a much faster pace. So with that drive feel being rather consistent between the two, I got really curious to see where this was going to go. And of course, now looking at this with Trivium between the Bear and me, I'm thinking, you guys have the perfect opportunity here where, you guys can have the ability to create the energy whichever way you want, but people are going to have ability to connect with it that are Trivium fans and between the Buried and Me fans, because this feeling of drive in your music is very, very, very similar, very well connected. And it's not the same, but it has that similar feel where people of those two of those bands that are their fans, like they're really going to be able to connect with it. And if you put on a live show that gives them that kind of energy that they're looking for, man, is it going to be something where you're going to go in, like you said, you're going to go on those nights where maybe 100 people know who you guys are, but you're going to leave with over 1,000 people knowing who you guys are every single night of that tour.
Yeah, that's the hope. I think your observation about sort of this drive or whatever is interesting, because I think I'm also like a little less familiar with Between the Buried and Me, but for Trivium, it seems like probably we have a lot of shared influences and a shared love of just like the brotherhood. And I don't just mean that like in like a, bunch of dudes hanging out sort of way, but like the camaraderie of heavy metal and the energy and like power of heavy metal, like that it just does something for people that is like inherently helpful and inherently like it boosts people to listen to this kind of music. And I think both us and Trivium were growing up probably listening to a lot of the same stuff and are making pretty different music, but that like there's still that love and care to like keep the spirit of heavy metal alive in what we're doing. And I 100% feel like, there's a kinship between the two bands on that front. And so that's kind of, that's what we're trying to tap into every night when we're playing. And that's what brings us to the table to try and write a new album, every couple of years. And that's what keeps us interested in doing this kind of stuff. Is heavy metal's been there for us in our lives, and heavy metal will be there for other people in their lives. And that we just want to be a part of that legacy and that connection, that, does something that's really unique, I think, in music, for an audience of people who sometimes are not just, totally accepted in every single way by everyone else that they interact with. And it can be really cool to see yourself in these people who are on stage performing this music and be like, they get me. And so we're doing that in our own unique way.
Yeah, and for a lot of us too, there's no better way to go about it than to be at a live show and connect with people like that, because we come from all different walks of life. We come from all different backgrounds. We all look different. We all feel different things. But when we go to those shows, when we're in the crowd, and I know like you've been to those shows too plenty of times, you've performed at those shows, and it's just everyone is there. Everyone's there to see potentially someone different. Like, some people, especially looking at the tour you guys are going on, there'd be some people that are there to see Khemmis. There's people that are going to be there to see Between the Buried and Me, and people that are there to see Trivium. But when those bands go on stage, when anybody goes on stage and you guys are playing your music, you guys are giving it your all, we are all there for different reasons. But the main, if you boil it down to the singular core reasons, because we get such a positive emotion and a positive response from ourselves when we're at these shows. Everyone has such this great positivity and this sense of community at these shows where you don't get that really anywhere else. And it drives a lot of us. We feed off it. It's where we feel our happiest. So we want to be around it as much as possible. And just even thinking about it a little bit more with that comment I made about, the drive of you guys and the drive of Trivium as well. And you're talking about the brotherhood as well, like the aspect of it. Thinking about Trivium as well, once again, I was thinking about their 2015 album, the one, I can't remember the name of it. It might be the one where Until the World Goes Cold and Silence in the Snow is on. It was the one where Matt's vocals, where he couldn't do the unclean vocals because I can't remember exactly what happened to his voice. But yeah, there wasn't as much pace to the music. It wasn't as fast as some of the stuff they've done in the past or some of the stuff they've done since. But it was the same drive feel was there. So for anyone listening, if it's like, okay, what does that drive feel like from Khemmis? Honestly, listen to Trivium's 2015 album and listen to Khemmis, and then you're going to easily see that powerful connection that I think I'm talking about right now. So that's where I'm taking that one. It's like, if anyone needs like a introduction to the drive of Khemmis, Trivium's 2015 album, and then going to Khemmis, and you're going to feel everything every step of the way.
Yeah. Or as we sometimes put it, Iron Maiden in a tar pit. Just think about like slower, sadder Iron Maiden. That's kind of more or less what we try and go for sometimes.
I mean, whatever you're trying to go for, like, but again, the key is you guys are making the music you want to make, and it's good music too. I mean, even like I said for myself, when it comes to doom metal, I never was really into it, but all of a sudden listening to your stuff, there was a certain thing about it that, I'm like, oh shit, there's something drawing me to it. I don't know what it is, but it's all around that drive of the music. So again, fitting on that tour with Between the Buried and Me and Trivium, my God, I'll put it this way. Is October 11th here yet? Because I can't wait to go see that show.
Where are you at?
I'm in Wisconsin right now. I'm in the city of Milwaukee, but I know you guys are playing in Madison on the 11th. Okay, and I'm I've already got my ticket for that because I saw it. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. Like, I need to see this. And if it gets to be like a show where all of a sudden everyone's running late, I'm just gonna call my brother and be like, hey, I'm crashing at your house tonight. Just accept this.
Yeah, awesome. Dude, I'm kind of sad we're not playing in Milwaukee because the show that we had there with the Mastodon tour was so fucking awesome. It just had this, like, the venue we played had this crazy basement that, like, the venue staff, like, let us all go into. And there's a fucking, like, hand-tiled swimming pool in the basement. And then, like, bands who have sold out shows in the main room there will sign the tiles. And so, like, Alice in Chains signed, like, this, like, pool downstairs. I don't know. It was just, like, the coolest thing. And I feel like the show would probably be there if it was in Milwaukee. So I'm kind of sad. I like that place a lot.
Oh, the show would absolutely be at the Rave if you guys were playing in Milwaukee for a tour like that. There is no doubt in my mind that it would be. And I do remember, I do remember when the Mastodon Opeth tour came through. I had tickets for a different show that night to see some other friends I've had in the podcast. First I've ever seen them because they're from England, so I was like, I really want to go to that. And
Nice show.
I had ended up getting a bunch of tickets for that Mastodon Opeth show, and I put it out online. I'm like, okay, does anybody want these tickets? Anybody want to see them? The amount of different like texts and emails and like messages I got from people like, do you still have those tickets? Can we get them? I'm like, here, go see the show, please. Go see it. So I may have helped, add a couple more people to that overall pool of people that end up attending that show that night. But I always love talking about the haunted pool at the Rave as well, because I love hearing people's stories about going down there. I recently did a podcast with John from the band Secondhand Serenade, and he had a story of the showers in the green room being broken. So they took him down to the haunted pool and had him shower in the old locker room of the haunted pool. And he said, he's like, yeah, I showered. I felt like these multiple people were watching me, even though no one was down there. He's like, I've never run out of a place faster than when I was done. He's like, I just put my clothes in front of me and I was gone.
That's amazing. Dude, that was close to the most haunted place we played on that tour, but not the most haunted.
What was the most haunted?
The most haunted place was the Masonic Temple in Detroit. It's this enormous building. It's probably like 13 or 15 stories tall. I think it's the largest Masonic temple in the Western Hemisphere, at least. And they have like several venues in this place, but we played at like the biggest venue. And then from there, you could easily sort of explore around, as long as you were willing to ignore signs that say, don't go here, don't do this. So me and Zach, our drummer, we just did like a self-guided tour of this whole building after we played. And like, we just found the creepiest places in this thing. Like, in like the basement floors, there's this huge ballroom with like this creepy hand-tiled, like fire pit thing in the wall that was like clearly part of some kind of ritual thing that they would do in this room. And then like on the top floor, there was this enormous space with a huge design tiled into the floor that like we couldn't actually tell what it was because it was too large because there was no lights. But it like every single place in this building just had this feeling of like ritual and, just like that some weird shit that nobody knows about has gone on in this place, and you couldn't shake it. And it just had a lot of character. It was really cool. I'd love to do like an actual ghost tour there or something, but self-guided was pretty enlightening as well.
All right, that settles it. I gotta jump in my car. I gotta drive to Detroit and check this thing out for myself because
it's so cool.
That's nuts. Like I gotta see a show there now, and two, I gotta go and like search out around this whole entire place. Just pull out a big old flashlight and just see everything and see all these different places with these crazy rooms that were very well used for some sort of potential weird rituals, and just kind of pick up on that vibe. So, and if you're saying it was more haunted than the Rave, like, okay, now I'm in. Like, you're selling me on that right then and there.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
I'm trying to think. I've never actually even been to Detroit, so I'm not sure how long of a drive it is. But yeah, also I could always make it. I know a bunch of bands that are probably out there that'll end up playing a show one night. So just sneak in the Masonic Temple, search around there. All of a sudden, hopefully make my way out, go to some other venue, and just like go crazy and see some friends. Just be like, let's go, and then mosh to all hell, for seeing some friends playing shows, kicking ass, the usual.
There you go. It's a cheap town to visit too, so make it happen.
I mean, God, you're just like keep like upselling this now, like cheap town to visit, crazy Masonic Temple, music venue in there as well. Like, shit, why haven't I been there yet? Time to
Detroit's awesome. It's just like such a important city for rock and roll and for funk and just for music like in general. And it's just got such an interesting history with how it's just kind of gotten shat on for the last 40 years since, we kind of moved away from having a national industrial program. And it's just like a very unique place in the US for that reason. It's like on the upswing finally again, but the infrastructure kind of sucks. There's like huge, like pond-sized potholes that you have to dodge, when you're driving around, and it just has a lot of character. And I think I've always appreciated that, like, the music that comes out of Detroit is just like edgy and dirty. And like you, like, I kind of have an affinity for, I guess mine's more for like early punk rock, but like I've always appreciated like the proto punk shit that, like MC5 was doing, and like Iggy and the Stooges. And like that to me is like the spirit of rock and roll. And, a place like Detroit like perfectly personifies that.
Oh, absolutely. So now I definitely got to go check it out, especially with what I love for punk rock. Like I kind of have the more affinity to a lot of the bands that have come out of Chicago for that. So kind of has this like a similar feel of that, like kind of that edgy, kind of out dirty kind of feel, but not to the same level as Detroit does in certain aspects. And it's all based upon, what has happened in those cities over the course of time. And it's great to see Detroit back on the upswing, but at the same point in time too, you've got you've still got that feeling around there of just all those different abandoned buildings, all the different abandoned industry from the 60s, from the 70s, when the U.S. went away from that, went more towards a technology-based side. And of course, with Detroit being so fully ingratiated in that, especially being, the hub for the auto industry, that's kind of what really made it, took it on the downswing. But again, thankfully, it's starting to come up on the upswing. But there's going to be so many like interesting places that still breed that kind of edginess and that kind of energy that really drives a lot of music that's coming out now. I mean, you take a look at some of the bands that have been like, they're from Michigan or from the Detroit area. They have that edge. They have that energy to them. And you go see them play live and it comes out fully in the music and you just can't get enough of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if it's not, punk or metal related at all, like something like the White Stripes is like, that's just like heavy, like badass rock music, because it has that same grimy sensibility. And I like that Jack White from that band has just been like a huge proponent of, continuing the legacy of Detroit. Like he bought one of the venues at the Masonic Temple, because he wanted it to, be able to still exist, because they were going to have to like sell that wing of the building or something, because they weren't making ends meet. And he sort of economically revitalized, that place and made it so that it's something that's viable for future generations to enjoy that legacy. And I don't know, that's so respectable, to look out for the place you're from like that, and to show such love for the place that made you sort of who you are. And I wish that I could say that I would be able to ever do the same kind of thing, but musically, I think, everybody in our band is from different parts of the country, but, we're very much like a product of, meeting each other and playing music together in Denver. And there's a lot to celebrate about this place. And it's nice to try and think about encouraging community in the same kind of way at the level that we can, when we're doing hometown shows or promoting friends shows, or, doing whatever we can to help set up, different events that are getting put on by local breweries or friends who are putting together like a festival or whatever. That shit is so valuable. And, I just like always encourage people to try and get as involved with their local music scene as they possibly can. And like, go see these big shows, obviously, but also like try and make time to go see a local show every once in a while. Or, if you are seeing a bigger tour or like a mid-sized tour and there's a local opener, come out early and make sure you see them too. Cause every band that you like got their start doing that. And it's only from people going out to those shows early and checking out, whoever at the Chug Suckle Tavern that they ever get any traction and are able to, make music that anyone gives a shit about. So, that's a cool demonstration of that happening in a really big way in Detroit. But I think we can all sort of do our part to try and promote and learn to love like our local music scenes, and that it's something that I would encourage people to get more involved with, in addition to coming and seeing this show, obviously, that we're about to do. But
Oh, I'm 100% agreeing with you on that as well. Especially where I'm at right now. It's here in Milwaukee. It's like we got the Rave, and the Rave is run independently. So it's like, okay, it's got its own flavor. It's got the multiple different stages on it where there can be multiple shows happening in one night. It's got the lore. It's got the history. It's got that great feel to it. And I know here we're also getting, they're planning on building two more venues that have a comparable size, like just one concert venue inside kind of like what the Rave has with the ballroom, but it's just one size. But I also look at them, and they're going to be owned by like really major conglomerates. Like one's going to be run by Live Nation, one's going to be run by the group in Milwaukee, where it's like they own a lot of the different like theaters around here. And that's great and all, hey, more places for live music, but at the same point in time too, it's like those places probably aren't going to have that same lore, that same feel, that same vibe as the Rave does. And there's a lot of smaller venues around here that, you go to them, and I'll put it this way, it's not like they're pretty. They kind of have that like gritty feel to them. But I love going to those because that's where it's about just the music. It's about the community. It's not about any, pageantry or, whatever the amenities are, and supporting your local scene. I mean, so many of these bands, and you can agree with this, you guys were at this point at one point where it was, you guys were a local band. That's how everyone pretty much starts. It's you're a small band trying to grow, you're local. And how else you can get to know the bands that are coming up and support the bands that are trying to grow and support their dreams if you're not going to some of these local shows, or going to these shows where, the openers, they might have a local band that's opening at that spot at one point in time. Like the show I'm going to the evening, or that we're recording this, there's a local band that's opening up the show. And I've known about this local band for years because their lead singer is friends with one of my ex-girlfriends. But I've known them for a couple of years, and I've seen them play twice. But every time I've seen them play, it's like no one really knew their music, or really was like the crowd size wasn't fully there. Now, I know we're going to have a pretty big crowd size just to start this thing out. And these guys are going to get a chance to actually perform in front of people that they might have never been able to perform in front of, and see what kind of energy they can bring. And I'm excited to see how this is going to turn out, because I just want to see, like, okay, we got a chance to see someone like really grow here and really take this opportunity. I want to see what they're able to do with it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Good for them. Also, just keep sticking with it. I mean, it's been really hard, especially in this kind of post-COVID time, for local bands, because there's so many independent venues that have closed and that are not going to reopen. It's a difficult business to be in. And the way that like these bigger companies like AEG and Live Nation and the venue owners for the venues that work with them, the way that they make money is like so predatory, from like being on the band side. The reason that you're paying $45 for a t-shirt when you go to one of these shows is because the venue's taking 30% cut of what the artist makes on those t-shirts to fill their own pockets. And like, this is the kind of thing that like I didn't have any idea about before, we were like playing shows at these bigger venues. But it's not just bad for like the industry that it's sort of these two companies that run most of the shows in the US now, but it's really bad for local business and for local bands and for, really just artists in general, that these spaces that are independently owned and that cater to more local clientele are closing, because it's removing the opportunities for people to get access to playing in these bigger places, one. And it's also removing a really viable source of, income and interaction for bands that are big enough to be successful at a local level, but not big enough to be successful at a, like national or international touring level. Because, if you can play a show at some 200 cap bar venue in town and sell out that venue and sell a bunch of merch there, like you're making a killing that night. And if you did exactly the same thing at one of these bigger venues, you might end up essentially paying the venue as much money as you got paid to play the show because of the merch cuts that they take. And like that stuff is really disheartening from the industry perspective. If we want to encourage and like um, you know, try and facilitate more diversity in like the types of artists that we're seeing and in new artists just having a space to do anything. It makes it really hard for people to ever get past the point where it's worth it for them to be doing this, especially if they want to do it as a job. Like, we're not quite there yet as a band where I can do that, but like the bar is really high for you to be able to get away with that in this day and age. And you just really have to be willing to sort of eat shit for years and years and years to make that happen. And I wish that wasn't the case, so the more that people can do to sort of invest in those local resources that create a more equitable sort of system for the arts, it makes a huge difference to everyone that gets involved in this kind of stuff, both to you as an audience member, but to the artists, to the local business people that own these places and are trying to make a living too. It's a tough business. So, support those local venues as much as you possibly can. It's just, it's so disheartening to see, like, a lot of the places that maybe we played on our last headlining tour before COVID, like, don't even exist anymore. And it's just really disappointing to see that happen.
It really is, and I'm glad you brought up the merch cut thing too, because recently, the lead singer of Alpha Wolf, I saw a video, just went off like in the middle of a show on the venue for taking, I think it was like a 20% merch cut. It's like these guys came all the way from Australia. They're bringing the people to the show, and as a venue, you're taking a cut of their merch, which is, they're the people that are already paying for a ticket to come and see the band, and that there's a good amount of that money that is going to the venue, and there's also those service fees attached to it, or the venue fees or whatever it is, and then you're going to take a cut of the band's merch because we're giving the band a place to play. Well, why don't you give the band a cut of the bar too? Because they're bringing the people in, so like where's the discrepancy here? And
right, you sold like $8,000 $12 beers at the show or whatever, that's a lot of money that's being made.
Yeah, and I get that sometimes some of these venues are working on tight margins, well, mostly the independent ones, but if we support these independent ones where they're able to do a lot more of these things because they're not run by these corporations that have these insane different ways of pricing certain things. Even as an example, there's a show that's happening here in Milwaukee on August 7th. And I wanted to go to the show because it's got some of my favorite bands in there. But for me to get a ticket to where I want to be and based on the venue it's at, and based on the company that owns that venue, after all the service fees and everything, it's $114. That's just insane to me. The next week, this tour is up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is about an hour and 40 minutes north of me. I looked for tickets on that. $55. What's the difference? The venue that is in Green Bay, Wisconsin is an independently owned venue. And of course, I'm spending that $55. I'm taking the drive up there on a Sunday. I'm going to go nuts, have a great time, come back home. And even in gas, I'm still paying less than the service fees I would have paid at that other venue.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Anytime that you can make that choice to do that, do it because it makes a difference. It's not just about the money for you either. It's like that money's going to the right place when you spend it that way. Maybe not the gas money or whatever, but yeah, for the show.
Yeah, because it's like when I think about it too, it's the venues that I've liked going to the most. They're the ones that are the independently run venues. There's just something about them where I just think it's just, you can see the level of care that the venue puts into the show, that the venue puts into, for the people as well, where, I'll go to the one up in Green Bay, like I'll go to the bar. It's like, okay, I got to buy a beer. I'm like, how much is it? It's like $5. I'm like, that's like a beer in downtown Milwaukee. And I'm at a show. Oh, hell yeah. Like, I'm excited for that. And yeah, I know what the price of beer is. I worked for Miller Coors for a summer, so I kind of saw the pricing model and everything. And I'm like, even at that insane markup, I know you're still making good money. And there's venues that sell it for like $10 a piece. It's just like, really? You're gonna sell me a 12-ounce beer for $10?
Yeah, I mean, like, not to bite the hand that sort of feeds me here, but the worst places to play are cities that commodify music to the extreme. So like Vegas, Nashville, like the places where you like think about like, oh, this is a place you go for entertainment. They value the artists so low that like it makes it like I dread going to those places and playing shows because it just feels like you're so expendable. But when you go to a show and you play a show, maybe in a smaller town like Green Bay or something, it's just so obvious from the venue staff to the promoter to the fans that come out to the show that people like really value what you're doing and are there to have a good time. And it's not being taken advantage of. And that is not true of like every place, you know. Sometimes it sounds crazy, but like you can absolutely show up to a venue and it's just immediately obvious that like they would rather you weren't there. And that's nothing more like, you know, debilitating to like you wanting to put on a great show than like feeling like you're not welcome and like they don't like want to put on the show. And like, it's like, well, what's the point? You know, like, why are we even here? Why'd you book the show? So, and it's always these gigantic, like corporately run venues that have that sort of energy. And, you know, sometimes it gets saved by like a really good promoter who's like clearly really passionate about the show that they're booking. But it's really hard in a place like, yeah, Vegas or like Nashville or something to like feel like there's any real human connection to what you're doing there as an artist. So I'll take a show in Green Bay or, you know, what, like Raleigh or, you know, wherever any day over those other two places for that reason. And it's worth the drive out. You know, you might see a better show because the band might be, you know, treated like humans at this venue that you're seeing the show at for less money versus, you know, the previous day. So it matters on a lot of different levels.
No, absolutely. And the one thing when it comes to like Vegas and Nashville and when you said when they see music and like entertainment as the commodity, because especially Vegas, like entertainment is their business. You take a look at Nashville, especially over the past 10, 15 years with how closely tied it is into country music. Like again, now entertainment is their business. So when you get some of those like major venues where they have all that, like the major corporate backing with like AG or Live Nation or something like that, you're going to end up getting to the point where everything is about the business. Everything's about the bottom line. But when it comes to like some of these independent venues, of course, it is their business. They're making money. They have to make money off it somehow. But there's a level of passion that's still involved. It's like, think about any small business or any small band or any band that's upcoming. There's a hunger there. There's a passion there. There's a drive there. So you can feel that connection between them. And you love to go and feel it. You love to go and be a part of that. You love to go and support that. But even like some of the venues when I go to Chicago, there's venues that are independently run. And I love going to those because the connection that you get there is fantastic. There's like one that's, you know, I think there's one that's, you know, that is run by Live Nation. And I went there. It's like, I love the venue itself based on just its history, whatever's around there, but it's just not the same. Like, it's just, there's that connection there. It just feels more like, we're doing this not because we love it. We're doing this because we can make money off of it. And when entertainment is your commodity and entertainment is your business, you're going to be bringing in whatever's going to bring you the most business, whatever's going to bring you the most money. So if you're going to be at one of those venues and all of a sudden it's going to be a venue or a show that's not going to be making you the most amount of money than you could, you're going to end up getting that kind of like, oh, you're here? Cool.
Yeah.
But you go to some of those smaller ones, like, again, I'll use the one up in Green Bay, for example. In July, they had the 3 Days Grace Wage War tour there. It started to rain because the venue actually has, during the summer, they'll do outside shows at a local minor league baseball park. And it started to rain after 0936 went on. So Wage War's set got washed out because some of their equipment was on stage and they couldn't use it that night. So after 3 Days Grace went on, in the parking lot, Wage War did a 5-song acoustic set because the fans were there. The fans, it's like, you can feel that support. Would they have done that if it was at one of those big corporate backed venues? Maybe, I'm not sure, but I got to feel that an independent venue and that kind of feel and that kind of energy around there helped, you know, have Wage War kind of be like, you know what? These fans came out here to also see us too. Let's give them something and go out in the parking lot and around 1,000 people play an acoustic 5-song set and people singing along with you. That's something that's just going to bring so much positivity and so much joy and so much drive to you that it's infectious.
Yeah, that's so cool. Good on them for doing that. I mean, that's like that's the kind of thing that makes me love music is that, you know, I think it can get hard when you recognize just how much work has to go into putting on shows. And like, for instance, like if you're showing up at the venue at noon or maybe even like 9 a.m., you're there for like 12 to 16 hours, at a minimum. And like, it's pretty hard to sort of value your time like it's any kind of reasonable, normal job if you look at it that way. Um, and so, like, if at the end of the day you're not even able to play the show because of something that's totally outside of your hands, and you're just like feeling beaten down by how you've been treated at a venue all day or something like that, that would be pretty hard to work up the motivation to do something like this. But um, it's cool that the venue would let them do that, and it's also cool that they just wanted to put on the show anyway. Ton of respect for those guys for doing that.
Yeah, it just adds so much positivity to everything that's going around at that moment in time, because to like kind of feeling for those people that went there to see Wage War, because if I didn't get a ticket for the show, but if I would have gone, that would have been the reason why I would have gone. And honestly, I would have felt pretty kind of dejected, but then in the parking lot seeing Wage War break out acoustic stuff and start playing songs, hell yeah, I would have been there. I'd have been singing along, and I'd been going home.
You remember that show.
Yeah, and I'd have been going home that night thinking that was the best part of the show. Like that whole entire thing. Even another example of that, like I was at Welcome to Rockville this year, and on Friday when everything was starting to get rained out, we had a little break in it before everything got rained out completely on Friday night. But before that had happened, We Came as Romans went on, and they kind of knew that the rain was and thunderstorms were coming. It started raining right at the beginning of their set, so they kind of reconfigured their set list to get the heaviest 6 songs on that set list up front in case the rain came. It did. They only played 6 songs, but that might be that might be the best set I've seen all year, just because of how everything worked together. When something's out of your control, how do you adapt to it? And for the bands that are able to adapt to it and give the most positive experience to the fans, those are the ones that are going to succeed. And there's a lot of times where, if you're a venue and you provide a positive experience for that band throughout the whole entire process, that's just going to help out the band put on a better show. That's going to help the reputation of that venue. And overall, you're going to end up getting better shows, better crowds, better everything.
Yeah, 100%. And you brought the conversation full circle before we were done, because now we're talking about, the same kind of things that we were talking about at the beginning with, like, what is the spirit of music supposed to be like when it's live? What makes a show memorable? Like that acoustic set is probably going to be the most memorable show that anybody that's seen them multiple times is going to have. It's cool for its bumps and its warts and, its problems. Live music can be a beautiful creature, and expect a bumpy, warty show when we come through town.
So I always end up having the best podcast episodes when somehow, some way, the conversation is so fantastic that it starts at one place, it goes all over the place, but then somehow, some way, ends right back at where we started. And then you can just listen to it on a loop, and it's just like you're getting everything from there. It is absolutely awesome. So I think we
stuck the landing on that one.
We stuck the landing. The judges from U.S., Canada, Japan, and Great Britain gave us a 10. The Russian judge gave us a 9 because, well, the Russian judge always gives you a 9.
Yeah, he always does that.
Always does. Well, Phil, as we bring this podcast to its conclusion, I always like to give you, as my guest, a chance to say whatever you want to say, plug whatever you want to plug, promote whatever you want to promote at the end of the podcast. So, Phil, floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked us out, check out Khemmis. Our newest album, Deceiver, came out last year, the end of the year on Nuclear Blast Records. It's a real heavy and important album for me personally. And, I think that you'll find something to enjoy if you love heavy metal. And check out any of our other 4 records, and, come see us on this Trivium tour starting October 2nd. finishes November 10th and goes pretty much everywhere in the US and Canada. So if you're at any place that we're coming, make the drive out, come check us out. We're going to be playing early. And, if you see me after the show, come say hey. And I enjoy talking to any and everybody that wants to talk about music. And I just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, Kevin. And hopefully I'll get to meet you up in Madison, I guess.
Oh, Phil, you're going to make the closing of this podcast one of the easiest closes I've ever had to do in my entire 328 episodes of doing this. So I always end this podcast with three things. First things first, when it comes to Khemmis, you're going to want to listen to this music. You're going to want to listen to everything they got. And you're going to want to go and see them on this tour with Trivium and Between the Buried and Me. You're also going to follow along with them on social media too to not miss out on anything, because after this conversation, who would want to miss out on anything with Khemmis? So you're going to want to go follow them on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok if they got it. You're going to want to go watch them on YouTube. You're going to want to go stream everything on like Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you stream stuff. On top of that, you're going to want to get tickets for this Trivium, Between the Buried and Me Khemmis tour. So how are you going to do that? You're going to got to go to those places. You got to find them. You got to hit that follow, like, share, subscribe, any kind of button that you can. But instead of having to look all that stuff up for yourself, let me do the work for you. Go to the description of the podcast, actually. It'll say, find Khemmis online. There'll be labels, links for everything. All you have to do is click those links. It'll take you right there. I'm doing all the hard work for you. You got to do 2 clicks. 1 to open the link and 1 to follow along with them. Or to buy the tickets, or to listen to music, either or. So I got you covered on that one. Now it's time for number 2. Now, Phil, whenever I've guested the podcast, I enjoyed having the podcast. I always like to make a certain promise to them as a way to say, thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the podcast. On top of that, I would love to continue to support the band in any way I can. So this promise does not start out with if. It always starts out with when. If implies possibility of not happening. When implies it's going to happen, but most time I'm not sure when. But today, I am for sure on the when. So on October 11th, when you guys play with Trivium Between the Buried and Me in Madison, I will see you for the first time. And my promise to you is this: first round's on me.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
I'll drink a whatever beer.
Fantastic, because I'm a big, big fan of beer. So I'm just going to the bar and be like, get me 2 of these. And I'm just going to walk and be like, hey, Phil, first round's on me. And be like, hey! And then we'll,
Excellent.
Have a good time with that. So
I look forward to it.
Absolutely. So I cannot end this podcast by saying goodbye, because that is too final, and for a number of reasons. One, I'm going to see you on October 11th. I'm going to see you play live. It's going to be a fun time. So anyone else that's going to be out in Madison October 11th, let's enjoy Khemmis. Let's go watch them play a good ass show, and let's mosh together, because, well, that's what I like to do. You'll find me in the pit. So I'll see you then, and first round's on me. On top of that, I can't have this be the only time I have you on the podcast. This conversation was incredible. I'd love to have you back on in the future. So can this end with a goodbye? Nah, this has to end like this. I'll see you later.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, folks, this is my interview with Phil from the band Khemmis. Once again, you can find them all over social media. You can find them on YouTube. You can stream their music. You can go get tickets for their tour Between the Buried and Me. Please go and support them, because this podcast is awesome with Phil, and I do not want to see anybody failing to support this band. So what do you want to do? You're going to want to go to the description of the podcast. I have links for their socials, links for you, links where you can stream their audio, links where you can get their merch, and links where you can get tickets for that tour in the description of the podcast. So go and do that right now. Also, as I'm going to say this as well, I'm going to be at that October 11th show in Madison, Wisconsin. You want to be there too? Oh yeah, you want to be there too. So go get your tickets for that. Let's mosh. Let's go crazy. Let's have some fun. Also, please make sure to support the Chord Progression podcast. Support us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for you guys. So go and like those pages, because, we got all the stuff on there. Instagram live streams Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central. TikTok, we have all the super cuts in the podcast where you're like, oh my God, that was an interesting point. Oh yeah, you're right. It's like, like the points, like you want to talk to your friends about this stuff. Those are going to be the points that you're going to want to remember. Boom, we have those on TikTok for you. Also, we're on YouTube, so please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where you can watch the podcast, or subscribe to Spotify, Podcast, iHeart, Amazon, or wherever you're hearing this audio stream-wise, because that is where we are, and you're not going to want to miss out on that. So subscribe, help us out. If you're already subscribed, thank you very much. If you're just subscribing right now, oh yeah, thank you even more. If you are not subscribed, you're like, I don't feel like subscribing, can you please subscribe? I'll be your friend, please. If not, thank you for stopping by anyway. Love to have you on the podcast as a listener. Please come back once again. Always happy to have you here because, God, I love doing this stuff and not going to stop. Also, please remember to support our sponsor of this podcast. First off, again, Manscaped. You get 20% off and free shipping. Use code CPP at manscaped.com. Link and code description of the podcast. Also, because we are sponsoring the When We Were Hungry Music Festival, go get your tickets now. October 20th and 21st in Las Vegas, Nevada. I will be there. We'll throw down pancakes in the pit. Who knows? You might even get a burger made for you by John from Secondhand Serenade. You never know. You might be moshing with them to Black Flag. You might be moshing with me to like every band out there. Who will want to be a part of that? So go get your tickets now. They're on sale. Thank you, Phil, once again for being on the podcast. Man, this podcast was absolutely fantastic. Making sure as many people get to hear it because you better believe we're putting some serious money behind this one. Oh, yeah. On top of that, now that's going to be for me, guys. Thank you for watching, listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one in the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!